Once upon a time, nestled in the heart of a lush green valley, was a small village known for its cheerful and harmonious people. In the center of this village lived an old lady who was known for her infectious laughter and unshakable happiness. No matter what happened, she was always smiling, always calm, and always seemed to have a twinkle in her eye. Villagers loved her and often visited her small but cozy home, which was adorned with colorful flowers and a soothing aroma of herbs and spices. She was their go-to person for advice, comfort, and sometimes just a cup of her magical tea, which, they joked, seemed to carry her happiness within it. One sunny afternoon, as the village children played and the adults bustled about their daily work, a young man, curious and restless, knocked on the old lady's door. He had been pondering a question for days and couldn't resist any longer. As she welcomed him in with a warm smile and a steaming cup of tea, he blurted out, "Why are you always so happy? No matter what happens, you never seem upset or sad. How do you do it?" The old lady chuckled softly and gestured for him to sit. "Ah," she said, "that is a question many have asked me, but to answer it, let me tell you a story." The young man leaned forward, intrigued. "When I was young," the old lady began, her voice carrying a mix of nostalgia and wisdom, "I had everything I could ask for: a loving husband, two beautiful children, and a simple yet happy life. We weren't rich, but our little home was filled with laughter and love. My husband would sing while working in the fields, and my children would dance around him, their giggles echoing across the valley. Life felt perfect." The young man smiled, already drawn into her tale. "But," she said, her tone shifting slightly, "life has a way of testing us when we least expect it. One winter, my husband fell terribly ill. We didn't have much money, and the nearest doctor was miles away. I did everything I could, tried every remedy, prayed every prayer, but despite all my efforts, he passed away." Her eyes glistened with tears that didn't fall, and the young man's heart sank. "That must have been unbearable," he whispered. "It was," she replied softly. "For months I was consumed by grief. I cried every day, feeling like the light had gone out of my life. My children looked to me for strength, but I had none to give. I felt like I was drowning in sadness." The room fell silent as the weight of her words lingered. "But then," she said, her voice lifting, "one morning, as I sat outside my home, I noticed something. A single flower had bloomed in my garden, despite the harsh winter. It was small and fragile, but it was alive, standing tall against the cold. That little flower reminded me that life goes on, no matter how much pain we carry. It gave me hope. That day," she continued, "I made a choice. I realized that life would always have its ups and downs, but I didn't want to spend the rest of my days drowning in sorrow. I decided to look for small things to be happy about, little blessings that could brighten my day, no matter how dark it seemed." The young man was intrigued. "But how did you manage to stay happy after such a loss?" She smiled. "Every morning I started a new habit. I would wake up and say to myself, 'Today is a new day. I will find one thing to be happy about.' Some days it was the sound of birds singing. Other days it was a kind word from a neighbor or the sight of my children smiling. It wasn't easy at first, but over time it became second nature. I realized that happiness isn't something that happens to us. It's something we create." The young man was quiet for a moment, then asked, "But what about when something truly bad happens again? Doesn't that break your happiness?" The old lady's expression grew serious but calm. "It's not that bad things don't hurt me," she said. "They do. But I remind myself of one simple truth. This too shall pass. Life is like the seasons. Just as winter gives way to spring, our pain and struggles will eventually fade. What matters is what we choose to focus on in the meantime. I focus on the good things I still have, my health, my friends, my memories. Even on the hardest days, I can always find something to be grateful for. The young man nodded slowly, beginning to understand. The old lady leaned closer, her voice filled with warmth. Happiness is a choice, my dear. It's not always easy, but it's always possible. The key is to train your mind to see the light, even when everything feels dark. And remember, even in your darkest moments, there's always a flower waiting to bloom. Her words stayed with the young man long after he left her home. From that day on, he started his mornings differently. He would wake up and think of one thing, just one, to be happy about. Slowly but surely, his outlook on life began to change. The old lady's story spread through the village, inspiring everyone who heard it. People began to adopt her philosophy, finding joy in the small things and choosing happiness despite their challenges. Over time, the village became a brighter, more cheerful place, all thanks to the wisdom of the old lady who had learned the secret to true happiness. And so, her story became a timeless reminder. No matter how hard life gets, happiness is always within our reach if we choose to see it.